thoughts on cancel culture and not programming a piece or composer due to a social injustice issue?
Ooh. I think cancel culture in general, outside of the context of this question, is not healthy. I mean, because it's like people, and it's also very broadly applied, right? So it's like, oh, like I'm gonna cancel you. Like I could, cancel someone for accidentally misgendering me when they might have not been informed, or I could cancel somebody for murdering a family of five. Like it's just like what I think it really depends. However, I think, and I really strongly believe that in music, especially in the position of conductor and an educator, our strongest point of activism is with the music and the composers we program. When we program music, we are, one, giving this person a platform. Two, we are sharing their music, their thoughts, their ideals with the world, with our audience. Three, we are having these students intimately have a relationship with this composer by studying their music for days, months, maybe even like a year if it's like a solo. So it's like, as a composer, also a composer, but as a conductor, when I had a chance to program the pieces I want to conduct, so I conduct one piece on almost every concert coming up in the next season, I'm like, oh yeah, this is literally, I get to choose who has a platform. Like, what a powerful thing. So I get to choose, am I going to program a Nazi who literally wrote music for Hitler? No, I'm not going to do that, because I don't believe that person deserves to have a platform. And I don't believe I need to have people sit down and play that music. But instead, I'm like, oh, let me program a Black composer. Let me program a woman composer. Let me program a lesbian composer. Let me program a gay composer. And then look, literally people get to interact with this music, and it's now a beautiful experience. And I am using my platform as a form of activism, because it is kind of radical, and it shouldn't be, but in our field it is. So, I mean, not necessarily like canceling people per se, but just knowing that as a director, as a conductor, like, your strongest power to change how people perceive music and what they have access to is in programming. And do not sleep on that. Do not underestimate that, because I mean, looking back, even at high school, I remember the music I played. I remember a lot of the music I played, actually, because it just sticks with you. So being able to choose that you can uplift the identities of everybody in your orchestra just by programming people that represent them, so cool. And it literally is like nothing on your part, except just finding how to get the music. Like,
the one thing though that I think a lot of educators forget to do though is to have the conversation of why and who this person was. Like, not doing anything if you're playing some sort of diverse composer, but you're just leaving it at that. Like, you need to.
And you're not talking about it. Yeah.
You need to have the conversations with the kids, which I think is the extra important, like, cherry on top part that is forgotten about.
Like, why even do it? Like, I mean, yeah, it's one thing to program Tchaikovsky and to basically erase his whole background, but it's like, yes, let's program Tchaikovsky. Oh, also, he probably killed himself and or was murdered for being gay, like, right after he wrote this piece and knew it was going to happen. And is that not important? Like, yeah, I totally agree. It's basically, it's useless if you don't talk about it.
Like anybody, professionals carry their own prejudices. How can professionals reflect on their own biases to be sure that they're providing healthy supports for the youth that they work with?
To put yourself in situations where you feel uncomfortable. Like, I mean, go to concerts, go to events, listen to music, put yourself in spaces where you're not the majority. And if you feel uncomfortable, like, sit in that feeling and just try to unpack, like, why do I feel uncomfortable? Why is this difficult for me? And like, that's okay. That's totally cool. And that's a very common thing, especially for like white people. Like, I've had to do that like a lot. Just be like, oh, unpacking like just so many feelings of discomfort that are just based in being raised, like, literally just to be racist, like, literally constantly. I really think all white people are raised that way in this country. It's okay, and it's fine to have that feeling, but it's really important that we do so, especially if we're educating people and we're responsible for teaching a diverse group of people. Like, you can't you can't just teach people based off what you're comfortable with. It's not fair to your students. It's not fair at all. It's sort of thing like, oh, well, how do you find your prejudices? Well, listen to other people, like put yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable. And when you are uncomfortable, don't try to explain your way out of it. Like, really just be good at listening to other people. And if you ever make someone else feel uncomfortable, just listen to them. You don't even have to say back anything back. Don't rebuttal. Just like listen, like, and unpack why you might feel confrontational or why you might feel uncomfortable. But I think those moments are really crucial and really important. And you need to work with people that don't look like you. And you need to, listen to music of people that don't look like you. Like, open your Spotify and let me see who you're listening to. And it's
Listen to your kids. Your kids like want to talk to you. I think that's like one thing, like professionals and teachers, like, well, they're just kids. Like, no, they they have valid feelings and thoughts, and if they want to play some, like, I know Hanover, we're diverse in the fact that we have a lot of Latino and Latina students, which is also hard because it's like we for my end at least we're focusing a lot on Black composers, which is wonderful, but it's like these kids like also,
yeah.
and just sitting down and listening to the kids like, hey guys, why don't you find me a piece?
Yeah.
You,
And like
let's
the
work,
most annoying, yeah.
let's work together to find some good music of some people that look like you.
Putting your ego aside to listen to your students. If your kids want to play a piece, like, listen to them. And like, why? Why do they want to do that so badly?
Yeah. What are some of the most exciting changes in music that you have seen with regard to support for the LGBTQ plus community, and what do you hope to see in the future?
Ooh, well, I'm gonna answer this in the rumble of classical music. Honestly, not much. Literally very little. When society picks like one person from a marginalized community, let's look at that person and be like, why did they pick that person? It's very strategic. It's very strategic because he's palatable to the people who are paying for it. So it's these white, cis, straight donors, and to them, he's a palatable version of what they can tolerate, right? So we need more radical change. We need more women in power. We need more queer women in power. We need more queer men. I think there's a difference between gay people and queer people. To me, queerness is something that's visible, something that is like, there are gay people that appear straight, you know what I mean? But then there are queer people who really are queer in all aspects of their identity, visually as well. And I think that's really important with people in power, to show that you don't have to, like, respectability isn't only found in like straight heteronormative dominance. And, I mean, so there hasn't been that much change. I mean, we have one lesbian composer who looked at me weirdly for saying I was trans, conductor in Baltimore, who no longer conducts that orchestra. I posted on my Instagram recently about conducting an address for the first time as a trans conductor. It was, thank you. It was really nice because I had like someone DM me and be like, hey, like, I'm a transgender conductor. And I'm just starting, and they're in academia, like on the West Coast. But like, to my knowledge, it is me and her. Like, literally, it is me and her in this country, and I don't know of any others. And it's just, why? There are millions of non-binary and trans people. When I look at the younger generation, there are so many of them realizing their identities at a younger age. But it's great that it's so great that we have younger people realizing these things. But we should be ashamed that they can't look up into these positions of power and see themselves reflected. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm very happy that I found the Queer Urban Orchestra. I hope to, use my platform to be very visibly trans. At this point in my life, I have nothing to lose. I've already been rejected from grad school constantly. I feel like I can't go back into academia. So I'm like, I'm just going to be myself fearlessly and conduct the shit out of this orchestra. And just, that is my power. Knowledge is power. And I really hope that there becomes more diversity and more equity in these positions of power soon. But I do think it will come from the ground up, but also if it takes allyship to bring awareness to these issues, right? Like if it's only trans people talking about trans issues, no one's gonna hear us because we're not the ones with the megaphone, you know? It will take allyship. And sometimes it takes people in power stepping down to let somebody else take that spot. But people in power like to hold on to their position of power, you know? So we just need fiercer allyship, but there really isn't that much going on that I'm like, oh, great, win for us. No, there's, it's, I hope it's coming. I'm going to fight my whole life to it. I definitely think now the conversation is there, but once again, it's going to take really fierce allyship.
My last thing is last thoughts. Is there anything else that you want to add or anything?
Lastly, it's just, do not as educators, do not underestimate the power that you have for 1 second in programming and teaching and lesson planning. Like every single day you are in front of those people and those students, you have a opportunity and a moment to show them a more accurate depiction of the world that they live in and to uplift them through diversity and through programming, and never sleep on that, never underestimate that, you know, at all. Provide them resources, connect them with people that look like them, and yeah, just don't underestimate that effort. It's really so powerful.